My name is Norma McClellan, and I'm 34 years old. I never imagined the day I laid my mother to rest would also be the day my life fractured completely, split cleanly and suddenly, like glass struck by a hammer. My mom used to say life had a cruel sense of timing, that it liked to twist the knife when you least expected it. I just never thought it would be this merciless. When I arrived at the church, people were already gathering. Familiar faces filled the pews, coworkers from my school, neighbors who had watched me grow up, Amanda with her husband and children. One by one they hugged me, gently, cautiously, like I might shatter if they held me too tightly. I felt fragile enough that maybe they were right. Still, I didn't cry. Not then. I was running on exhaustion, on sleepless nights in hospital chairs, on the beeping of machines and the numb routine of planning a funeral for the one person who had never let me down. As people settled, my eyes searched the room for one face. Jeremy, my boyfriend of 3.5 years, the man I shared a home with, the man who once told me my laugh was his favorite sound before deciding other things mattered more. He wasn't there yet. Of course he wasn't. He slipped in halfway through the first hymn, taking a seat in the back row, dressed in a sharp charcoal suit that probably cost more than everything in my closet combined. He didn't come over. He didn't offer a hug. He didn't even meet my eyes. My chest tightened, but I swallowed the feeling whole. Today was about my mother, not him. The service continued. The pastor spoke. Amanda read a poem, her voice breaking. Then it was my turn. I stood at the podium, the wood cold beneath my palms, the room unnaturally still as I adjusted the microphone. I told them my mother was the strongest woman I had ever known, that she worked 2 jobs for years, a secretary by day, cleaning offices at night, so my sister and I could grow up without feeling how heavy the world really is. My voice trembled, but I kept going. I spoke about kindness, about being gentle without being weak, about loyalty, real loyalty, the kind that doesn't shift depending on who's watching or what's being whispered behind your back. I felt movement ripple through the pews. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I could sense Jeremy stirring. 5 minutes in, he stood, he straightened his jacket and walked out, right in the middle of my eulogy. The entire church watched him leave. Some faces were stunned, others openly disgusted. Amanda's jaw tightened so hard I thought it might crack. For a brief moment, the room tilted, and I thought I might collapse. But heartbreak doesn't kill you. It just convinces you it might. So I kept speaking. I talked about my mom's quiet jokes, her love of holiday meals, the way she hummed while doing the dishes. I thanked everyone for coming. I finished with her favorite verse. Somewhere inside me, something broke anyway. At the graveside, the sky darkened and a light rain settled into my hair like icy fingers. I stood beside the coffin, watching the earth claim what remained of her. Jeremy wasn't there. Not even pretending. He didn't bother showing up for that part. By the time we reached the reception, I felt hollow. I smiled, thanked people, accepted embraces, all on autopilot, my mind stuck on the empty seat at the back of the church. I was near the buffet table when my phone vibrated. A message from Jeremy. "I'm in the parking lot. We need to talk. Now." My stomach twisted. I stepped outside. He was leaning against his sleek black car, a manila envelope in hand, irritation written across his face like my grief was an inconvenience. "Sorry to interrupt your day," he said flatly, "but I need you to sign these." He thrust the envelope at me. Inside were separation papers, already prepared, his lawyer's work neat and thorough. Asset divisions, timelines, signatures highlighted. "You couldn't wait?" I said softly. "Jeremy, my mom." He cut me off. "It's better to handle this now. No more pretending. We both know this hasn't been working." My hands tightened around the pages, the words blurring. "Today of all days." He shrugged. "You're emotional anyway. Might as well get everything done at once." Something inside me went quiet. Not rage, not tears, just emptiness. I looked up at him. "Who is she?" He blinked. "What?" "The woman you've been seeing. What's her name?" His jaw twitched before he answered. "Tiffany. It's not a big deal." 8 months of late nights, unfamiliar charges, strange perfumes. Not a big deal. My mother's death reduced to a scheduling inconvenience. Something hardened inside me. "Fine," I whispered. "Give me a pen." He looked surprised. "You're not going to fight this?" "Why would I?" I said calmly. "You've already left." I signed every page, every line, without pause. He looked almost disappointed that I didn't beg. "I'll have my lawyer file this Monday," he said. "Start packing. You'll be out by the end of the month." I nodded, hands shaking. He drove off, leaving me alone in the cold parking lot, clutching the remains of a life I had just signed away. I didn't know then that this wasn't the end. It was the spark, the beginning of something my mother had always sensed, and the start of Jeremy's downfall. If you'd asked me 2 years earlier that Jeremy Collins would be the man who handed me separation papers at my mother's funeral, I would have laughed. Back then, I saw him through hope, through softness. Hindsight is cruel like that. It shows you every warning sign you ignored in perfect clarity. We met at a friend's birthday dinner. He was confident, charming, polished. Wealth clung to him effortlessly. Nice watch, tailored blazer, the ease of someone who never worried about rent. When he found out I was an elementary school teacher, he smiled and said kids were lucky to have me. I believed him. Our first year was sweet, flowers at school, hands held like I was precious. Then I met his family. Everything shifted. His parents' home was immaculate, expensive, intimidating. His mother, Vivian, looked me over and said, "Oh, you're the teacher." Not my name, just the title. His father asked if I planned on staying in that line of work. I said I loved teaching. He nodded with polite disdain. Everyone finds fulfillment differently. Jeremy stayed silent. His sister Chloe suggested I switch careers, earn more. I smiled and declined. Then Tiffany entered the conversation. His mother mentioned her success, her pedigree, how she fit their world. I understood exactly where I stood. Temporary. When Jeremy and I moved in together, his parents insisted on a cohabitation agreement. It protected him, his assets, his future. Jeremy framed it as practicality. I signed because I loved him, because my mom taught me to trust. Slowly, the jokes came, about my salary, about other women's success. His family's comments sharpened. Jeremy stayed quiet. Then the late nights began, the charges, the lies, and finally, the comparisons. "Her career is exploding," he told me once. "You feel small. I saw you shrinking your dreams so he could feel taller. She's really going places." I stared at him. "Why are we talking about your ex?" He shrugged. "I'm just saying she's ambitious." As if ambition was the price of love. Around this time, Mom's health began slipping. Heart disease, doctor visits, procedures, nights at the hospital. I was exhausted, juggling worry and school in a home where my boyfriend's affection felt like it was being rationed to me drop by drop. Every time I stayed with Mom overnight, Jeremy would sigh. "Your sister can handle some of it, can't she?" "She's handling everything she can," I said. "Mom needs both of us." "It just feels like your focus is divided." Divided? He said that while my mother was fighting to stay alive. Mom never said anything, but she saw what he was doing to me. She saw the way my shoulders curled inward when his name popped up on my phone. She saw how drained I was. One night, when I thought she was asleep, she whispered, "You deserve someone who doesn't just stand beside you when it's convenient." Her voice was thin, but her certainty wasn't. I think she already knew what I refused to face. Everything escalated at lightning speed. Jeremy's late nights became routine. His phone barely left his hand. He locked it now. He showered before letting me near him. He left the room to take calls. The final proof came in the form of a florist's receipt curled in his coat pocket. "Tiffany," the note read, "beautiful as always." I didn't confront him, not then, because Mom was getting worse, because my heart couldn't survive losing both of them at once, because denial is a warm blanket in a cold room. But I knew, and he knew, I knew. We lived like strangers after that, sleeping beside each other, breathing the same air, sharing nothing. And then Mom died, and Jeremy made his choice clear. He didn't just fall out of love with me, he outgrew me. Or maybe he thought money and status made him bigger, and I was something small he needed to shed. He had no idea how much bigger I was about to become. The morning after I signed the separation papers, the morning after I buried my mother, I woke up in the quiet of Jeremy's condo feeling like someone else's shadow. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was accusing. Every corner of that home suddenly felt foreign, like it belonged to a life I never truly fit into. Jeremy had already left for work, or for Tiffany, or for whatever version of his life didn't include me. It didn't matter anymore. Amanda picked me up for the will reading that afternoon. She didn't ask about Jeremy. One look at me told her everything she needed to know. The lawyer's office was tucked into a row of old brick buildings, simple, unpolished, the opposite of the glossy world Jeremy's family lived in. Inside smelled like paper, lemon cleaner, and the faint echo of whispered grief. Frank, Mom's estate lawyer, was an older man with soft eyes and a gentleness that made me want to cry again. He'd known our mother years. "I'm so sorry for your loss," he said quietly. Helen was one of the sharpest women I ever worked with. Sharp? Yes. Mom was quiet, humble, never flashy, but sharp. We sat at the long conference table, Amanda, her husband Mark, and me. My hands were cold, knotted together in my lap. Frank opened a thick folder. "Your mother updated her will 3 months ago," he began. "She was very deliberate in her arrangements. This might come as a surprise." I barely heard the next part. Real estate, 3 properties, combined value $1.1 million. I blinked. The numbers didn't make sense in my head. I knew Mom saved religiously, clipped coupons, reused gift bags, wore the same winter coat for 8 years. But $1 million? Amanda covered her mouth, eyes wide and wet. Frank continued. Additionally, Helen had investment accounts, mutual funds, tech stocks, bonds, some cryptocurrency she purchased years ago. His tone was calm, clinical. I felt like I was floating. The combined value of these accounts is approximately $2.7 million. My fingers trembled. Amanda reached for my hand. "Norma, oh my God!" Frank wasn't finished. "There are also several bank accounts totaling approximately $400,000 and a life insurance policy valued at $500,000. I felt lightheaded. My mother, the woman who apologized for buying branded cereal, had quietly built an empire. Altogether, Frank said gently, your mother's estate is valued at about $4.7 million. After taxes and fees, each of you will receive roughly $2.1 million. The air left my lungs. $2.1 million? My mother had left me the kind of safety she never had, the kind of security Jeremy worshipped in other people, but never thought I'd possess. Frank's voice softened. There's more. He pulled out a sealed envelope with my name written in Mom's delicate handwriting. It broke me completely. I took it with shaking hands and opened it slowly. My dearest Norma, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm sorry, but I need you to know something clearly. I saw everything. I saw how exhausted you were. I saw how he made you feel small. Sweetheart, that is not love. That is a cage. A sob escaped me. Frank pretended not to notice. I don't know exactly what Jeremy has done, but I know the look in your eyes when you're hurting, and I know what a woman in love is willing to ignore. I couldn't protect your heart from breaking, but I could protect your future. Every asset I have is structured so it belongs to you alone. No one, not a partner, not a judge, can claim a single dollar. I made sure of it. You are free now, my love, free to build a life that doesn't require you to apologize for who you are. Be bold, be loud, be yourself, and don't ever shrink again. All my love, always,
Mom. There are moments when your heart breaks and heals at the same time. That letter was one of them. I cried into my palms while Amanda held me, both of us shaking from the weight of love and grief colliding all at once. When I finally looked up, Frank cleared his throat softly. There's one more thing Mrs. McLean left. He slid another envelope across the table, this one with Jeremy's name on it. In her instructions, she requested this be given to him after your separation becomes final. I stared at the envelope.
Mom had known. She'd seen the cracks long before I admitted them, and she had prepared for this moment. For me, the rest of the meeting passed in a haze. Paperwork, signatures, timelines. Everything methodical and slow, like the world was giving me space to catch up. When Amanda drove me home, she hesitated before pulling into the driveway. "What are you going to do?" she asked softly. The question should have broken me, but instead I felt something warm begin to rise in my chest. A tiny flame, barely there, but real. "I'm going to leave," I whispered, "and I'm going to give Jeremy that letter." Amanda nodded, a fierce look in her eyes. And then I stared at the condo, at the windows where Jeremy and I once planned a future he clearly didn't want with me. And then I start over. But I had no idea then, not truly, just how spectacularly everything was about to turn, for both of us. Leaving Jeremy's condo wasn't as dramatic as I once imagined it would be. There was no screaming, no slamming doors, no explosive confrontation, just me quietly folding my clothes into boxes while the late afternoon light hit the walls of a home that had never really been mine. I left the furniture, the decorations, the kitchenware, anything that felt tied to his world. I didn't want souvenirs from a life where I'd been treated like a placeholder. I packed only what belonged to me. My books, my clothes, my laptop, the quilt Mom made me when I went to college, and Mom's letters, both of them, the one she'd written to me and the other addressed to Jeremy, the one that would change everything. For the next 2 weeks, Jeremy texted me constantly, but not about us, not asking how I was coping with the grief, not apologizing for the funeral stunt, not repentant. No, his messages were purely transactional. "Jeremy, have you packed? Jeremy, I need you out by the 28th, remember? Jeremy, Tiffany wants to start renovating ASAP. Jeremy, this is taking too long." Every ding of my phone chipped away another piece of the girl who once thought love meant patience. By the time I moved into my short-term rental, a tiny furnished place with creaky floors, I felt lighter. Raw, but lighter. Amanda helped me carry boxes up the narrow stairs. When we finished, she leaned her shoulder against mine. "He's going to regret everything," she murmured. I didn't reply then. I didn't have to. The day the separation officially finalized, my lawyer emailed me the confirmation. I stared at the notification for a long time. It was done. I was no longer legally tied to the man who served me papers at my mother's funeral. I took a deep breath and picked up the envelope with Jeremy's name. Mom's handwriting was steady and neat, beautiful in a way that made my heart ache. I drove to the condo. Jeremy's car was in the garage, and I could hear music inside. Something upbeat, something expensive sounding. I knocked. He opened the door, wearing a fitted navy shirt, looking like he'd just finished getting ready for a date. His jaw tightened when he saw me. "What are you doing here?" he asked softly. "We're done, Norma. You can't just—" "I'm here to give you this." I held the envelope out. He frowned, annoyed and curious, tearing it open immediately. I turned away, taking a few steps back because I wanted to hear it. I wanted to feel the moment he realized the fortune he threw away. There was silence. Then, "What is this?" His voice shifted, no longer sharp, but shaky. He read faster. I heard the envelope crinkle. He inhaled sharply. And then, "$2 million? Your mom left you over $2 million? No, wait, more than that. This can't be real." I turned back toward him. "It's real." "But your mom, she didn't have—" "How?" "She planned her entire life," I said softly. "She saved, she invested, she worked harder than anyone you've ever met." He looked at the letter again, eyes wide, disbelief flattening his features. Then desperation crept in.
And the assets are in trusts, locked, protected from spouses. His voice dropped. Norma, why would she? Because she saw everything. My words were calm, steady, true. He closed his eyes. Oh my God. Oh my God. I pushed for that agreement. I insisted on it. And now, his hand went to his forehead. She protected everything from me. I nodded. The same smart decision your parents encouraged, I added quietly. Remember that? Jeremy stared at me like the ground beneath him was shifting. You knew, he accused suddenly. When you signed the separation papers, you must have known. I didn't, I corrected. Not when I signed, not when you walked out of the funeral, not when you rushed everything through. His eyes widened even more. So I divorced a millionaire? I didn't flinch. No, Jeremy, you left someone who never needed your money to begin with. You just didn't know it. His Adam's apple bobbed. I could almost see the reality sinking in. He had rushed the separation to prevent me from touching his assets. Instead, he cut himself off from mine. And Tiffany, his perfect, ambitious mistress, was about to learn he no longer had a wealthy girlfriend. He stepped toward me, voice breaking. Norma, listen. I made mistakes, I know that, but we can work this out. We were good together before everything got stressful, before I stopped fitting the image you wanted. That's not fair, he whispered. It's honest, I corrected. He reached for my arm. I stepped back. Please, he said, voice cracking for the first time I'd known him. We can start over. You have money now. We can build something. There it was. Not, I miss you, not, I'm sorry I hurt you, not, I'm ashamed of how I treated you, just, you have money now. I shook my head. You left me long before I left you, I said softly. You just finally put it on paper. His face twisted, anger fighting with panic. It's not fair, he snapped suddenly. I supported you for years. You insulted my career. You cheated for 8 months. You walked out of my mother's funeral. He froze. You can't expect me to pretend none of that happened, I added. Jeremy's voice dropped to a whisper. She said in the letter that I never deserved you. I swallowed hard. She was right. He staggered back like I physically pushed him. For a moment, he looked like a man losing not just a girlfriend, but the future he thought he was entitled to. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindictive. I just felt done. Completely done. I turned away. Behind me, I heard him choke out, Norma, please don't go. But I kept walking. I walked down the steps, across the parking lot, into the cold air that felt sharper than anything inside that condo ever did. As I reached my car, I realized something. For the first time in years, the weight in my chest was gone. I wasn't losing anything. I was finally free to build something new, something mine. And Jeremy? He had just begun to understand what he'd thrown away. After I walked away from Jeremy's condo, I expected some kind of emotional collapse, a breakdown, a rush of heartbreak, something dramatic, something cinematic. But instead, what I felt was silence, relief, a quiet, steady hum inside my chest I hadn't felt in years. It was like stepping out of a thick fog and realizing the world had shape and color again. I spent the next few days moving into my small rental, organizing my new space, and letting my body relearn what peace felt like. Amanda checked on me constantly, her calls a lifeline I didn't know I needed. Every time she asked if I missed him, I gave her the same answer. I miss who I thought he was, not the man who served me papers in a parking lot, not the man who walked out of my mother's funeral, not the man who chose Tiffany the moment I became an inconvenience, just the illusion. But illusions dissolve, truth remains. Word travels fast in our town. Within a week, Jeremy's parents reached out to Amanda, who immediately forwarded me the messages. Vivian wanted to talk over coffee. Richard wanted to clear up misunderstandings. Chloe sent a 3-sentence apology filled with more emojis than sincerity. I ignored all of them. Then the messages escalated. Vivian, Jeremy is devastated. Vivian, you should have told him about the inheritance. Vivian, it's not too late to reconsider things. I laughed out loud, alone in my apartment. These people who once judged me for every breath I took, who made me feel small every time I walked into a room, were suddenly interested because I was worth something in dollars, not character, not loyalty, not the way I stood by Jeremy through every high and low. Money, only money. Amanda said, Mom would have roasted them alive, and for the first time in weeks, I laughed without feeling guilty. Tiffany dumped Jeremy. That part wasn't surprising. Apparently, she found out that the breakup didn't come with the financial upgrade she had anticipated. According to a friend of a friend, Tiffany left him with the same icy precision he once used on me. He tried to save face online, posting motivational quotes about growth and evolving past mistakes, but everyone in his circle already knew the truth. Gossip blooms fastest in wealthy communities. People whispered, colleagues talked, clients murmured about his poor form at the funeral. Jeremy had always been obsessed with maintaining an image. Now that image had fractures he couldn't smooth over. Funny how karma doesn't need invitations. A week later, I received an unexpected visit. It was late afternoon at the small tutoring center I'd begun volunteering at, a quiet place with mismatched chairs, faded posters, and children who made me believe in magic again. I was packing up worksheets when the door opened and Jeremy stepped inside. He looked smaller, not physically, but in presence. His confidence was replaced with hesitation. "Norma," he said quietly. I didn't move. "What are you doing here?" "I'm not here to ask for money," he said quickly, "I swear. And I'm not here to get you back. I know that's not happening." He exhaled shakily. "I'm just here to apologize." I folded my arms. "All right, I'm listening." He swallowed hard, like his pride was a bitter pill. "I hurt you," he said over and over. "I treated you like your life was small because I didn't understand the value of anything that wasn't tied to money or status, and I'm ashamed of that." Silence stretched between us. "I know I can't fix it," he said, "but you deserve someone who stood by you the way you stood by everyone in your life. You deserved someone who actually loved you." My throat tightened, not for him, but for the version of me who once believed he did love her. "Thank you for saying that," I murmured. He nodded slowly. "I hope you find someone who sees your worth from the beginning." "I think I already have," I said softly. Something in his expression flickered. Sadness, acceptance, maybe both. He nodded once more, then left. No drama, no shouting, no begging, just a quiet final goodbye. The next chapter of my life didn't start with a grand gesture. It started with small choices. I used part of my inheritance to create something meaningful, a scholarship fund in my mother's name for low-income students who dreamed of becoming teachers, a community literacy center filled with books, after-school programs, and volunteer tutors, a place where kids felt safe, supported, and seen. For the first time in my life, I wasn't pouring from an empty cup. I was building something in my name, in Mom's name, something that mattered. About 2 months after the inheritance settled, I met Lucas. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't trying to impress me, he didn't have sharp suits or expensive watches. He was an accountant who adored his job, loved volunteering, and had a quiet tenderness that felt like calm after a storm. He asked about my day and actually listened. He laughed at my terrible jokes. He remembered my coffee order. He didn't once ask me what I earned. He didn't know about the inheritance. Not yet. I wanted him to meet me first. Me, the teacher who stayed late with struggling kids, the daughter who held her mother's hand through every hardship, the woman who rebuilt herself from the ashes of a broken relationship. One afternoon, as we walked through the neighborhood, he looked at me and said, "You know, Norma, you're one of the strongest people I've ever met." And my heart didn't twist with fear, it opened. A few weeks later, I visited Mom's grave. I brought her favorite flowers, white stargazer lilies, and sat on the cool stone bench nearby. "Mom," I whispered, "you were right about everything." I told her about Jeremy's letter, about the tutoring center, about Lucas, about how I finally felt like myself again. "I'm okay, better than okay." The wind moved gently through the trees, brushing my cheek like a mother's hand, and for the first time in a long, long time, I believed.